Hello everyone, and welcome to Procurement in the Park. I'm Christian Schuh, and today I want to talk about the alarming rise of protectionism and what it means for CPOs. It seems that hardly a week goes by without some government somewhere making a protectionist move. Of course, the damaging trade war between the US and China, which began during the presidency of Donald Trump, but has intensified during President Joe Biden's residency at the White House, continues to rumble on. But other governments with rich natural resources are starting to impose or consider imposing export controls. Indonesia has banned the export of nickel. Zimbabwe has banned the export of lithium, and Argentina, Bolivia, and Chile, which form the so-called lithium triangle, may soon collaborate OPEC-style on the output of their lithium mines, which account for 60% of the world's known deposits. But the big trend in the new protectionism is the number of countries offering massive subsidies to lure manufacturers to their shores. China has long pursued the path of self-sufficiency with massive state interventionist support. Now America is leading the way, just as it led the way after the Second World War in the opposite direction, promoting economic integration and unleashing the forces of market capitalism that boosted growth all around the globe. In the past year, the US government has announced enormous subsidies worth $465 billion for green energy, electric cars, and semiconductors. And where America leads, others follow. Europe is taking a new insular, Europe-first approach to business. An approach signaled last month when a plan by the European Commission to appoint a Yale professor as chief economist of its competition division was withdrawn after howls of French-led protest from politicians that they were about to hire an American. Already, a relaxation of European Union state aid rules has spurred the building or planning of up to 40 battery plants across the continent. Germany, for instance, is spending 10 billion euros to entice Intel to build a microchip plant near Berlin. On a smaller scale, the UK last month announced that Tata, an Indian conglomerate that owns Jaguar Land Rover, is to locate a new battery gigafactory there. The company plans to invest £4 billion, but the government has not denied that the eventual state subsidy could rise to £1 billion. Elsewhere, we see similar stories. India, in accordance with its Made in India strategy, is offering to pay half the costs of companies building a chip-making factory there. In the same vein, South Korea is offering tax subsidies to chip makers. These moves represent a significant challenge to CPOs, not least because the modern practice of procurement really evolved with the rapid globalization that was triggered by two seismic events. First, in 1989, the Berlin Wall came tumbling down, opening Eastern Europe and adding 1 billion people to the global economy as workers and consumers. Then, in 2001, China joined the World Trade Organization after decades in the economic wilderness. By this time, General Motors, influenced by its Spanish CPO, Ignacio Lopez, had launched a global sourcing program that helped the company tap the ingenuity and investment of the best supplier companies in the world. In other words, modern procurement is a product of globalization, the very opposite of protectionism. But the rise of protectionism cannot be ignored. And on the face of it, the news could be seen as good. After all, in an era with high inflation, When cost saving is at a premium, which CPO is going to advise their CEO to say no to a large state subsidy that would otherwise go to a rival? It would be like looking a gift horse in the mouth or shooting yourself in the foot. But if CPOs stand back for a moment and consider the bigger long-term implication of saying yes to a large state subsidy, the choice is not so clear, not so simple. The Economist says the latest protectionism is underpinned by what it calls a destructive new logic that threatens globalization. And I agree. In America's case, even if protectionism helps to reindustrialize the nation, it is also likely to hold back growth, corrode global security, and increase the cost of the green transition. To put it bluntly, it is a zero-sum game. And at the corporate level, there are other negatives to consider. For a start, in sheer practical terms, it won't be easy to dismantle global supply chains that have been carefully constructed over many years. But more concerningly, if CPOs urge CEOs to say yes to state subsidies, they will almost certainly limit the scope and enormous potential of procurement to spur the growth of their company. There's no question that subsidies will help companies reduce their costs and lower prices for consumers. But as I explain in my book, Profit from the Source, published by Harvard Business Review Press, the CPO and the procurement function can do so much more than simply cut costs. If CEOs can be encouraged to make suppliers and procurement one of the leadership imperatives, and if they empower the CPO with a mandate that enables the procurement function to shape rather than just support the corporate strategy and deliver profitable growth, then they can transform their company into one that is more resilient and makes products and services that are higher quality, more innovative, more sustainable, and faster to market. But this price rests on a company's freedom to find, nurture, and collaborate with the very best suppliers, wherever they may be in the world. Today, there are very few companies that have developed procurement functions with the capabilities to maximize the full value offered by the suppliers. It was precisely for this reason that I and my colleagues from Boston Consulting Group wrote Profit from the Source. If now, as a result of state subsidies, the business of procurement once again becomes narrowly focused on cost reduction, then this would be a major turning point, and in my view, a retrograde step. I realize that it won't be easy for one CPO in one company to stand against the tidal wave of state subsidies. I also realize that there's no long term without a short term. But the history of the past 50 years, in fact the past 500 years, is that those who bet on the world are the winners. Thank you for watching. I'm Christian Schuh, and this is Procurement in the Park.